Okay, moving right along to Module 22. This now is going to go back and pick up section 4.4 and 4.5. I believe we also discussed 4.7 and 4.8 in this as well. So this module is all about the atmosphere, wind patterns, solar radiation, and Earth seasons. We'll do a couple of different demos in class to go over some of this, but I'll point out the highlights here that you need to know. I forgot to mention in the watershed notes that this FRQ is really good. After you do the notes on watersheds, you should try to go back and see if you can work through this FRQ. And I would pay attention to these bolded task verbs so that you can try to answer the questions how they want you to answer those. So those are under the course resources, those task verbs, and they explain what they are in the course resources on Canvas. All right, so there is differential heating of the planet, and this is all due to the solar radiation that hits the planet and the curvature of the planet. And so there are some effects of latitude. We all know that the equator is warmer. Northern latitudes or higher latitudes, whether you're talking northern hemisphere or southern hemisphere, are going to be cooler. And that all has to do with several factors, but one very important one is this idea of insulation. So this is a really good pick to understand. And then understanding about that vocab word is also very important. Albedo is another important concept, and albedo is the amount of sunlight that is absorbed or reflected. And so the reflected sunlight is actually going to create more heat on the planet. If it's absorbed, a lot of that energy gets absorbed by living biomass, so all of the plant material that's on the planet, and then that reduces the amount of heat in the area. So wooded areas or like the rainforest, the air temperature can end up being cooler than a place that has like a lot of parking lots and a lot of buildings, places where we're not absorbing that sunlight and most of it's being reflected. So that's important to know about albedo. You should also understand how seasons work and make sure that you just understand that like our planet is never actually further away from the sun during the winter. It all has to do with the tilt of the earth. So that we're tilted at 23.5 degrees, and that's what determines the season we're in, not the distance from the sun. That's a major misconception that a lot of people on the planet have. They think we're further from the sun, so in the winter and closer to the sun in the summer, and that's not actually true. Okay, you should also understand the layers of the atmosphere and what is like found within each of, or what each of those layers of the atmosphere include. They're all important. You should know where ozone is. Ozone that is actually healthy for the planet is found in the stratosphere. Ozone that is not good for our lung health is found in the troposphere. That's where we live. That's the air that we breathe. And so make sure you understand that. You should also understand that air is circulating on the planet. And, excuse me, understanding this adiabatic, I can't say that word, adiabatic cooling and adiabatic heating are two important topics that you should know, but honestly, you don't have to memorize it. If they ever ask you about that, I think it's good to understand the general idea of it, but if they ever ask you about it, they're going to describe the process. So if you've read it before, it would just make it easier in a question. And then you should understand that the atmosphere also has convection currents, which you can see that right here. So make sure that you understand that. That's important to know. And that's what creates, another term that you need to know, which is in our course guide, is Hadley cell. So along the equator, there are these, as the weather or as the temperature of the air heats up, that hot air rises. And as it gets high enough in the atmosphere, it actually starts to cool down. And then it creates this circular motion, which basically drives not just our weather patterns, but drives our winds and everything else. And then understanding what the ITCZ is, the Intertropical Convergence Zone. So make sure you read about that. That's where we have the most dramatic or the, it's where the most intense sunlight falls on the planet. That's what you need to know about that. Okay, so understanding Hadley cells, then another key important topic is the Coriolis effect. This also helps to create the winds that we experience on the planet, which determines our weather patterns. So that's really important, and understanding that circular motion of the planet is what causes these different wind patterns. And so this is an important diagram as well. And so I would make sure that you understand how that's working. And we're gonna watch some videos and do some demos on this in class too. So if you find that you read it and you're like, whoa, I don't understand it, hopefully I'll make it make more sense to you when we do our demos in class. Okay, all right, so that is it for Module 22. This is a really important module. They do like to talk about temperature and wind patterns, and all of this helps drive like ocean currents, and that all determines weather, which weather is a key. We all know that climate is a major component of the type of ecosystem that you have, or the biome that is present in your particular ecosystem. So that's all really important content that you should know. Okay, I'll see you next time for Module 23.